Welcome all you infected wounds. I'm the boy CJ Metal, and today I'm oozing out Horrified by Repulsion. As many of you probably know by now, this album pioneered Grindcore and would go on to be a big influence on bands such as Napalm Death, Terrorizer, and Carcass during their gore grind years. Of course, it also helped push extreme metal into a new direction by bringing punk into the mix. Released in 1989, Repulsion unleashed this gory, festering album upon the world. You could even say that this album is repulsive. Yes, I just went there. What separates this album from others at the time is the combination of metal and punk. By this time, punk and metal hadn't really been mixed together, at least not to this capacity. However, as punk and metal both grew heavier, faster, and basically more brutal, it was only a matter of time before the two became lovers and ultimately fucked and had a baby. For those who have heard this album, you probably already know that this album's quite easy to dissect, and for those who haven't heard this album, well, it's quite easy to dissect. From like the very first song, you can tell that there's some very obvious influences on here, such as death metal and thrash metal, and then if you're punk, there's some obvious clear punk influences on here too, from hardcore punk to D-beat. In my opinion, this album balances punk and metal quite equally, and one doesn't feel overpowering over the other, unlike Terrorizer's World Downfall, which I felt leaned more towards metal, or I guess death metal, making it death grind rather than just regular grindcore. It was definitely really weird listening to this album, not gonna lie. I mean, nowadays grindcore leans way more towards the metal side of things rather than being equal parts. I mean, on here we had like these hardcore vocals composed in a thrash metal style being mixed with death metal and punk riffs. And while lyrics don't define a genre, it should also be noted that at the time, punk was really political during the 80s, like lyrically. And then you have this album, which is all about like gore and death, like another part of metal being contributed to grindcore. But then grindcore would go on to be more political in nature anyways, so it's kind of weird that like the pioneering album isn't politically charged, however, grindcore as a whole would be politically charged. So I don't know, it's just something to note, I guess. To me, this album was good/great, and I guess the reason why I guess I can't rate it any higher is because I've become so accustomed to the more metal-leaning grindcore that when I listen to this album, it just kind of throws me for a loop. I don't know, something about this album, and I understand and respect its significance in both punk and metal. I mean, that's all great and whatever, but to me, it just wasn't very enjoyable, like, overall. Like, I thought some songs were a hell of a lot better than others, so it was a bit of a mixed bag for me, but I definitely thought it was a pretty solid album, at least. That's all I gotta say. If you think this album's a 10 out of 10, well then, that's fantastic for you. I personally didn't find it to be that way. And if you hate this album, well then, there's something wrong with you, because it's definitely not that bad that people should hate it. Anyways, that's all I got for today. Thank you everyone for liking and subscribing. Make sure you tell a friend to like and subscribe as well. And as always, I will see you at the next review.